Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here, and today I have the pleasure of bringing you my first interview with Classic Physique extraordinaire, Terrence Ruffin. Terrence is regarded as one of the world's premier bodybuilders, especially because of his extraordinary posing ability. Terrence and I have been following each other for some time now, for we both share the passion for bodybuilding and its history. But in this interview, we talk about Terrence's career up until this point and how old school bodybuilding has influenced him, as well as his bodybuilding approach and his aspirations and goals for the future. Sit back and enjoy this interview with one of the world's best current bodybuilders. Enjoy.
How's your day going, man? I already asked you that. All right. I guess I'm ready to go.
All right, man. Thank you very much, Terrence, for being on my channel. It's a real privilege to have one of the greatest classic physique bodybuilders from the Classic Physique Division on the channel. I'm a real big fan of you, especially because of the way you present bodybuilding in this modern time as a true artwork, and it's a very rare thing to see. And this is why you've got this marvelous ability to pose. I think you're the best poser out of all the classic physique bodybuilders. So just really thank you for your time, and I really appreciate this opportunity.
No, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad I got to hop on, and hopefully we have a pretty good conversation today.
Yeah, I'm sure we will, man. This is going to be awesome. All right. I always start asking with some basic questions like, how did you start bodybuilding? What was your motivation? How did it all begin?
Okay. Well, I started bodybuilding after I failed out of special forces. The job was called Tag P, so I spent about 6 months doing that. I didn't make it through, so I started going to the gym, and very early on, I started seeing, I was able to put on a good amount of muscle. Honestly, when I first started in the gym, my goal was to just come back and try out the pipeline again, because I just wasn't strong enough to do certain things, and it just was really really difficult for me to do certain things in the field. So, but what ended up happening was when I got to my new base for my new job, someone mentioned bodybuilding to me. They said maybe you should try this out, and so I went to the grocery store and picked up a magazine and saw Dexter Jackson on the cover, and from that point on, I was like, well, let me give this a shot, and said I was probably around in maybe it was before the Olympia, so maybe August. That's when I got the magazine, and then in April the following year, I did my first show.
Wow. Okay. And what age would you say you started bodybuilding then?
That was 18, 19. Yeah, 18. My first show was at 19, but I probably got into it at 18.
Right. Okay. Did you see, the gains coming on fairly quickly for you?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is too, like my type of training changed. Like everything with bodybuilding, there's a lot of context with it. People, you tell them something, but there's a whole lot of things behind the scenes that they don't know. So, like I said, I was trying out for special forces, so that's very, very heavily endurance based. A lot of running, a lot of PT, a lot of throughout the day. Eating wasn't great. So after I stopped doing that and literally completely changed my whole type of lifestyle up, I put on about 20, 25 pounds in the course of maybe 6 months, and so I started out at like 125, 130, and then ended up my head was at 155 before I did my first show. Yeah.
Okay, I get it. So you're saying because of the type of training you were doing before, you were fairly underweight. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, like if a person is doing marathons, they're not training for bodybuilding.
Yeah, exactly. So then you really, I mean, that's the kind of transformations that might wow some people, but it makes sense because you firstly normalize, and then obviously the bodybuilding is going to allow you to put on even more muscle. So
Completely different goals, you know. You don't want to be
absolutely.
heavy when you're doing a lot of endurance stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So you mentioned Dexter Jackson as being kind of like the spark, the motivating spark that you had. Would you say any other old school legends besides Dexter really just made you want to bodybuild or influenced the kind of bodybuilding that you wanted to present?
Yeah, so of course, Dexter Jackson was the first bodybuilder I ever saw. But I'm big into history, so I started researching people here and there, bodybuilders. I'm a shorter guy. I'm 5'5", so I wanted to see like, oh, are there any shorter bodybuilders? So Franco Columbu was one of the first guys I really liked.
Yeah.
Obviously, I Miss Olympia. Beat a lot of the taller guys. So he was probably the second most influential person early on in my career. Besides that, but now there's a lot of guys. Once I started focusing more on posing, that kind of led me to a whole bunch of different bodybuilders like, Muhammad Makawi,
Yeah,
Bob Harris, Francis Benfato, Lee Labrada, the guys like that.
absolutely. The masters.
Yeah, yeah.
What about Ed Corney or
I
Frank
got to
Zane?
be Ed. I mean, I definitely respect them, but they're not my favorites. The guys I named are my favorites for sure.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against them. They're definitely great posers and amazing athletes. And obviously, Frank Zane inspired, probably more people like Frank Zane than Arnold. When it comes to posing and stuff, he sold more magazines, so
Yeah.
stuff like that. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. It's interesting you mentioned Macaulay and Labrada and the guys from the 80s and 90s, because I have to admit, as bodybuilding changed from the 70s, the posing, I have to admit, and the conditioning really came out in the 80s and 90s, I think.
I agree. Like, I mean, I'm not the biggest. I don't know the most about 70s posing. I've seen videos of like Ed Corney posing. I've seen
Mm.
bodybuilding shows, but yeah, definitely the routines kind of hit. They kind of peaked in like the
Yeah.
80s, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're on point right there. It just became, it really hit its sweet spot, its sweet spot right there. I mean, the 70s really drove bodybuilding into, everybody's home screen with Pumping Iron and Arnold, really
Yeah.
brought it to the spotlight. But then with all that old school knowledge, I mean, these guys just perfected it and
Mhm.
made it beautiful. So I
I
agree.
agree.
Um, Now, how did you train in the beginning? I know we've had a brief uh, text chat before, and you mentioned Arthur Jones style of training. Is that the style of training that you use in the beginning, or has that changed? Or yeah, I mean, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, yeah. When I first started, I did kind of the two guys I kind of modeled my training after when I first started was probably like Kai Green. Just because his videos, like I said, Dexter Jackson was the first guy I ever found, but his YouTube videos weren't very helpful. Like if you ever see a Dexter Jackson training video, it's just him training, not saying anything, not explaining
Yeah,
anything. Until like a new guy, that's not very useful.
yeah,
Kai Green did a really good job of explaining why he's doing certain stuff, how it should feel, and that was very helpful. Um, he did. The thing is too, like with those videos though, you got to realize what point of his career he's at, because when he started doing those videos, he was definitely lifting a lot different than how he was to put on most of his muscle when he was
mm,
training with like Oscar Aldon. But um, besides him, Jay Cutler too, just because Jay Cutler, he talks a lot about like intuitive training, and obviously those work to a certain point. Like when you're a new guy training, pretty much anything's gonna work if you have decent genetics, and there's a varying scale on that. But after that stopped working, then that stopped working very early on for me.
mm.
um, I switched to a very low volume, higher intensity approach. Um, and like you said, Arthur Jones is kind of the founder of that
Mm.
style of training.
So first, you basically saying that you kind of use the high volume approach
very high.
Yeah.
Not the funny thing is, like, people, they say they train hard, they say they're intense, but and I thought I was doing the same thing. You know, everyone thinks they're training hard, but you don't really know until you get exposed to that by someone else that actually trains hard.
Yeah.
So I once I got to train with someone who actually knew what they were doing, I was like, man, I wasn't even close to what I was doing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you went the high volume approach, then as you kind of learned more about focusing your energy on having more intense workouts, then you switched to the more low volume, high intensity training. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you read up much on that? Like use, for example, Dorian Yates's approach or Mike Mentz's?
No, I haven't read up on most of their stuff, to be honest with you. I have heard some stuff about Mike's approach, and it was a lot different than what um, I do from what I've the little bit I have read.
Hmm.
Um, I work with a guy named Hypertrophy Coach. He's read a lot of Arthur Jones stuff,
Right.
so a lot of that I get from him. That's kind of how I know about him.
Okay.
But yeah, and I know Dorian. Dorian, he's a fan of Mike Minster as
Hmm.
well. He just kind of, he kind of changed it up a little bit. It wasn't exactly what Mike was doing.
Yeah.
I think mine would be pretty close to what Dorian does, just by watching videos that he does. Um, yeah, much closer to Dorian. If I had to pick somebody.
So would you say then that you're choosing a variety of exercises and really just maybe doing one warm up or a couple of warm up sets and then going all out on that one set?
No, I don't do. You can't do, like, let's say for instance you're deadlifting, and let's say Dorian could deadlift 7 plates, 6, 7 plates. You can't just do one warm up and then
Yeah.
jump to 7 plates. He was doing one working set, but several warm ups. You have to kind of step it up gradually.
Mm.
So I don't know. Maybe it's no, like, specific amount of warm up sets. Everyone's a little different,
Mm.
but maybe at least 3 to 5, somewhere in between. I would
Okay.
guess he would do, just randomly. Saying if he went up by 1 or 2 plates or somewhere in between there. So yeah, typically I do maybe anywhere from 1 to 3 working sets, depending on a lot of different factors. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, sometimes you just can't get everything out of that one set. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, intensity is definitely a training to failure, and intensity is definitely a skill you kind of have to build up on.
Mm.
And yeah, it's not something you can kind of just automatically know how to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it comes with experience as well, as you just said.
Hmm.
Now, how about diet? I mean, there's, of course, the old school approach of high protein, high fat, and the more 80s, 90s approach of now high protein, high carb. Have you used either or both during your career?
I've done pretty low fats when I was with my old coach, Matt Porter. We were just using only fats I really had in my diet was from the proteins I was eating,
Hmm.
and that worked out fine for me. Now my fat's a little bit higher, still not crazy high, but it's a little bit higher. Um, but I guess the biggest difference I do, compared to most bodybuilders, is I do flexible dieting. So I have a set meal plan on the board here, but if I feel like switching out chicken for turkey, I'll do that. If I don't feel like having rice, I'll do a potato or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you would say you have then more of a balanced diet than an extreme high protein, high fat or anything like that.
Well, my protein's pretty high. My protein's about 2 times my body weight, which
Hmm.
is considered, high based on science and stuff. Most of the studies say what 2.2 grams per kilo,
Hmm.
and that's the high margin.
Yeah.
Mine's 2 times pounds, so two
Super
times the
power.
pound.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, so I eat like 300, a little over 300 grams of protein, which is definitely more old school thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So that's probably, yeah. My protein's pretty high. Carbs are pretty high as well. My carbs are higher around right now. For I think it's around 400 right now. Fats are at about 90 right
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and, as I get closer to dieting, the first thing we'll probably pull from is a little bit of the fats. Then once that's settled, I don't know, maybe 60 grams or so, we'll probably start pulling primarily from carbs, while also like doing stuff with cardio.
Yeah.
Mm.
Awesome. What about supplements? Does that play a major role in your dieting, or do you tend to stick more to just natural food?
Supplements, yeah, they play a role for sure, man. Yeah. More so like what kind of like fat burners and stuff. I've tried stuff, and I mean the thing with supplements, like with like supplements like that, like over the counter stuff like fat burners, creatine, things like that, they definitely can help, but you can still get lean without it. You can still grow without those. They just help, To what percentage, I wouldn't know, but there's studies and stuff you can read on that have it, but yeah. I don't think they play a huge role. Like you said, like back in the day, they didn't really have all these different subs, and they still built pretty impressive physiques for sure.
Exactly. All right, man. Now I really want to ask some more interesting questions,
All right.
because that's just all the standard stuff I get out of the way.
Okay.
You're posing. How is it that you got so good at your posing?
I don't know, man. I it's just a talent that I have. That I've obviously I had a talent for it, and I just built upon it. Like I have some of my first routines up on YouTube, and looking back at those, like they weren't very polished, but they definitely were creative. And I think the biggest thing for me was learning how to just refine everything a little bit better. And I just took time, took time. I needed more experience on stage and stuff. So even now, I'm still trying to improve. I'm still trying to get better. And yeah, it's just having a talent for it, and then actually nurturing that talent is the biggest thing. Yeah.
Have you had like coaching for it? Is that something you've done, or purely just improvised, learned from what you've seen on other YouTube videos or whatever? Stuff
I
like
just
that
learned from myself. Yeah, I've never really had a posing coach. I remember my first show, my trainer tried to we did a routine, and he helped me make a routine for my show. And he's a very standard, new school kind of bodybuilder, like approach to posing, like front double, walk over here, and I didn't really like it because I went online and looked at videos, and I saw Kai Green, and he kind of opened my eyes to like, oh, you can do all this cool stuff with posing. So I kind of came back and made something more creative. And I think that routine somewhere online. I think that's my first routine is really hard to find. Like I can't find it, but I know it's online somewhere. My second routine is a little bit easier. I have on my page, but no, I never had any formal training. I would like to do some maybe interpretive dance stuff or performance art to kind of help me take it to the next level. But it's not all the best dancers are in California. So even the ones that are in Tampa, once they get good, they move to California. So that'll be the only way I get to learn something, because I want to learn from the best. And like the people here aren't bad, don't get me wrong, but if I want to learn from someone, I want it to be like the best. So I definitely want to go over there to California eventually.
It sounds like a really good idea. And you know what? I really like your direction. The fact that you're seeking this means that you constantly want to improve on your posing, which is really what makes you stand out from other bodybuilders. So, I congratulate you on that. That mentality is just it's as you said, it's what makes the difference and could take you to the next level, so
yeah, I agree.
That's awesome. Now with your competition history, I see like it's only recently that you just really burst through the scene, because I mean you won the Toronto Pro in 2018 and the Niagara Falls in 2019, and back then you weren't placing as high in the Olympia Classic. And I mean, bang, 220. You get 2 second
2 seconds.
placings.
Yeah.
I mean, man, that's just like, wow.
Yeah, man. So in 2018 I did the Olympia, and so let me go back. So the first year at the Olympia I placed 9th in 2016. 2017, I got my best place of the time. I got 6th. So I go into 2018 and I'm thinking, okay, I can probably break the top 5, but I end up dropping back down to 9th.
Yeah.
And at that point I was like, okay, I need to do something different. A lot of people, they can grow really, really quickly. And I realized, I'm like, okay, I needed more time to grow. And competing throughout the year wasn't allowing me to do that. So pretty much all of 2019 I took off. I wasn't at the 2019 Olympia. I ended up competing in November because my coach passed away and I started working with John Meadows. And I wanted to kind of do a test run because I would kind of had I was kind of off. I kind of needed to reset after him passing away. So we did that show and I won it. And I ended up doing the Arnold out there because that was the plan in the beginning. That was the plan. I was going to take a year off and then come back and do a big show like the Arnold or the New York. And so I came back, and that time off really did me well.
Yeah. Awesome. What are your goals now? Now that you've got 2nd place in both the Classic, Arnold Classic, and the Olympic Classic, I think it's an obvious question.
My goals is to do better. So my goals is to win each one. Honestly, that's kind of my goals. Besides that, I definitely want to be able to show bodybuilding to more of the mainstream people, more to like people that aren't into bodybuilding, and show them what it can be. Honestly, I think that's what I want to do more than anything. I just think definitely having the Olympia win and the Arnold win will help me achieve that goal there, for sure. So that's my main goal. It's just with COVID and everything, a lot of the avenues I wanted to kind of do that with, they're kind of closed now. Like there was this huge art event that I wanted to perform at. There was a couple of TV shows I wanted to do. So just waiting for things to kind of normalize a bit so I can kind of do what I had envisioned. But that's my goal, man. It's just wanna show bodybuilding to the world, and then also, man, just kind of help. I enjoy traveling and stuff. I'm not gonna be like, I like Dexter, but I'm not gonna be competing until I'm like 50. So I'll definitely be done before that. But I definitely like the way Jay Cutler does things. Like I'm a really big fan of his for the fact that even though he's been retired forever, he's one of the few bodybuilders that's still like heavily in the industry. He's at events all the time. He has shows, and he just likes bodybuilding. He's always there around it,
Yeah. So you planning on competing this year for both the Arnold Classic and the Olympia?
Just the Olympia this year. I see my buddy Steve's I think he's doing the Arnold. I think he's gonna win it this time around. Steve, he's been pushing for it. I know. But yeah, man, that's not I'll probably do the Arnold the following year or something like that. It's just timing wasn't great this year. A lot of business stuff. So I wanted to kind of that's the thing people don't realize, man. Competing, I like competing, but competing doesn't equate to like, it's not how bodybuilders make a living. Like we get paid, but it's not enough to survive. So it's definitely important to have some type of income that you can rely on outside of that. Yeah, so that's what I've been focusing on.
I think that's one of the burdens most bodybuilders have to bear is if you compete too much, you can't make a living. So
open bodybuilders is obviously it's different with them. They get paid a lot more. If you do 2-3 shows a year as an open bodybuilder and you place well, that's over 6 figures there. But for us, we not even close. We would have to do weights. We would have to do like 30 shows.
Yeah, I know. I've seen the prize money. I mean, this is some.
Most
I
of
made a.
them,
Sorry, go on.
most of the prize money for Classic. So the highest, like not the Olympia, not the Arnold. The highest one is the one in Texas, I want to say, and that's $5,000. Most of the other ones are about $3,500 for first place. So yeah, it's definitely not great.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I made a couple of videos on that. At the fact that classic physique is almost as popular now as open bodybuilding, especially when you go to see some of the Instagram profiles. Yet you don't see that reflected in the prize money.
That's not what's so like the difference is when you go to the Olympia, more like it's and obviously it's changing, but bodybuilders still bring more people to the shows. That's the truth. I don't think it should be that big of a discrepancy. I definitely don't think we should be getting like less than 10% of what bodybuilders get.
Yeah.
I definitely think open bodybuilders should make more, but it's definitely it's a little bit too much of a like discrepancy in
Yeah,
pay.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think you guys should be getting closer to, anywhere between at least. I mean, I think top price should be more like 100 minimum.
I agree. I think
Yeah.
anywhere, yeah.
Between the 50 to
great.
100 mark.
Yeah,
Would
I
be
was
more
thinking like
reflective.
80 would be great. 80K would be great because I think what Chris got maybe 40. I think
Yeah.
30 or 40, 30, 40. Yeah. Then you factor in taxes, and then it's like, man, it's not much at all.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, just a couple of last questions. What is your focus then on bodybuilding currently? If there's anything you wish to improve, that you think is going to help you get to that next level. I mean, you mentioned your posing. Is there anything else that you're currently trying to improve on?
Oh yeah. For like to improve my physique, yeah. Definitely always trying to grow my upper body a bit more. When I first started bodybuilding, I've always been I guess bottom heavy, a little bit more leg dominant. So definitely biceps and whatnot, trying to get bigger. I would like my hamstrings to grow a little bit more too. Besides that, just a little bit more flexibility to hit certain poses. I think a lot of people don't think about that. Like, yeah, that's a huge part if you want to be a good poser, being able to move fluidly. Yeah, having that range of motion. So just working on that is another thing that I really want to focus on as well. So those two things are the big things.
And what is it that you wish to portray and tell your fans? What do you want to bring to the table in today's modern bodybuilding?
I think I don't like to toot my horn too much, but I think I've already done a lot of what I wanted to do. And I've been bodybuilding for a while now, almost a decade. And I've been here since Classic started. And I don't really care if I'm the best poser or not. That's not really something that really matters to me all that much. It's an art, so it's like saying that picture's better than that picture. It's whatever, and it's preference. So, but the biggest thing I want to do is just inspire like the new generation to come up and do better than me, pose better, bring more people to the shows. Because honestly, I think that's the route. That's the only route for bodybuilding to grow. And the bigger the bodybuilding grows, the more money the bodybuilders make, the better lifestyles we can have. And I think that's kind of important.
Yeah. You saying that because it's kind of, I mean, there's a lot of commentary now saying that bodybuilding's become more of a cult again. It was more popular before, and now it's kind of sunken back into this cult-like status.
It's a complicated thing, man. Like, it depends on what you mean. So, like it's definitely less mainstream. We used to be on ESPN. Yeah. We used to, it's definitely less mainstream. But I definitely think there's more overall people that know about bodybuilding. I think that's the case. More people do know. More people definitely know about bodybuilding and fitness. It's just a little different.
Yeah. I've got a couple of fan questions, if you don't mind. There's just 3 of them.
Okay.
One question from Official Forgotten Fitness is, do you feel bodybuilding as a whole is moving in the right direction, in the fact that size and conditioning is more important than the shape, or is classic physique the way to go?
I think I would disagree with that statement. So if we compare 2000s to today, Arnold and all those guys, they say, even not even let's say 2005 to that, when Kai was having the big gut, obviously even going back to Ronnie, Bubble Guts and stuff. I would challenge someone to find many bodybuilders today having that issue. We even got bodybuilders in vacuums. Juan Diesel Morel, the late, Viator Alzapor. We got Nick Walker trying to hit a vacuum as well. He's not the best, not the prettiest physique, but that session's fine. We got pretty physique. I think people that say stuff like that, they don't really pay attention to open bodybuilders. They hear what one person said or this person said, and they just agree. Because look at the boogeyman, Blessings. He just posted that rear double, that 3/4 back double by, like kneeling down. That was beautiful. Cedric Millen has a beautiful physique. Sean Rowland has a really tight waist.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of bodybuilders that have great physiques. They just focus in on the one, the couple that don't. Obviously, we're always gonna have bodybuilders that are more mass monsters or this or that. That's because there's a demographic that likes that. But there's still plenty of bodybuilders that we can look to and say, oh, that guy has a really pretty physique too.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to admit, when I met Sean and Cedric in Australia, yeah, I mean,
really pretty.
Yeah, really nice. I mean, the frames
even
are
the
great.
guys coming up, man. If you pay attention to these younger guys, like Quentin up in Canada, very, very pretty physique. There's a Ian. Ian doesn't have. I don't know if Ian has a pretty physique, but his waist is tight. Those side shots are beautiful. His side tricep, side chest. You got guys like there's a Marcus. It's a black guy out in the UK. There's tons of guys who, if you really want to pay attention to bodybuilders, and you would know. I'm a big fan of the sport. I look at every guy. I see everybody, and there's tons of good guys coming up in the sport now.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you're a real fan of the sport.
Yeah.
All right. One last question. Oh yeah, actually, 2 last questions. Did you focus on any body parts to actually accentuate your V taper? Is one question.
I mean, yeah, I think people always ask this question about waist and can you make your waist smaller? I don't really think you can per se. I mean, you're like, if you think about like your hips, they're a bone. You're not gonna really make your bones smaller. But you can do is, work on building muscle to, give you a better shape. So obviously you're working on your shoulders, your lats, are key there, your quads. So basically just keep doing what you're doing because everyone is already working on all those muscles already, It's just continually building those, The biggest thing is you just make sure you keep your waist tight. That's the biggest thing. You don't want everything growing. So just keeping that waist tight and working on the other body parts is key. Because Arnold didn't have the smallest waist, but he never blew out his waist either.
Exactly. Exactly. Last question. Has your perspective on bodybuilding changed as your training has progressed, and did you always want to emulate classic physique?
My perspective on bodybuilding. Yeah, as I've grown, a lot of things have changed. And that's with anything, man. You get older, things change. I turned pro at 21 years old. I didn't really know shit. I know anything about anything. And back then, things are a little different. I overestimated my ability to a certain extent. I thought I would be 180 pounds. I remember I turned pro at 154. I thought I'd be 180 in like 2 years. I'm still not 180 pounds. I'm more aware of what people like what role genetics play in bodybuilding. I'm more aware of just being realistic with yourself and your expectations throughout your career. It's nothing wrong with believing in yourself, but you know, some of these guys, it's like if you're placing last at a local show and you're telling someone, "Oh, I'm gonna be Mr. Olympia in 5 years," that's a little
Yeah.
much, you know. Focus
Yeah.
on like leveling up first, so stuff like that. Um, and I also think about what my role is within the sport now, like how can I present myself, and what can I do to give back? What can I do to make the sport better? What I can do to make myself better? Some
Mm.
things I never really thought about before. Um, and you know, what was the other? I forgot the other half of that question.
Yeah, it
What
was
was
just
it?
basically, did you always want to emulate classic physique?
Okay. Um, there's some guys that are super into so no, I remember I turned pro as a bodybuilder. There was no class physique, so
Yeah.
that wasn't the case. I just liked what I liked. You know, I liked Lita Broad. I like, you know, I'm like I'm so like go with the flow, man. Like I like Marcus Rule and I like Lita Broad, you know.
Okay.
Marcus Rule, I respect them. I respect them both equally, obviously, you know. No, Marcus Rule would never be known if he tried to be like Lita Broad, you know what I mean?
That's true.
He would know, no one would know who he was. No one would know Big Ramy if he tried to be like these guys, because they just don't have the physique for it, you know.
Mm.
So I respect them. They did the best with what they had. But as for me, no. I don't. I really enjoy Classic. I'm not gonna leave Classic. I'm not going to 212 or anything like that. I'm happy here, but I've never really thought about it like that. I think people a lot of times like to separate the classes really, really hardcore. But honestly, man, a lot of the bodybuilders in the classes, they're in that class because that's where they fit, not
Yeah,
because they
that's true.
really value, you know. Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, like I hate it. Like when I used to do a lot of posing. I used to have a lot of people posing, and they always come to me and say, "Oh, I pose like a bodybuilder," and I feel like that's such a disrespectful thing because every pose that you know comes from bodybuilding. Lila Brada's a bodybuilder. Arnold's a bodybuilder. Dexter Jackson, you know, any quote unquote classic person is a bodybuilder. So when you say that you pose like that, you're just disrespecting those guys because it's just an excuse, really. I'm just say you're a bad poser. That's fine. I'll help you. But
Yeah.
don't blame bodybuilding for your bad posing because Cedric McMillan, he's doing just fine posing, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I hate that excuse. So I think people should just I think they should think a little bit more about the history of everything. And like at the end of the day, we're not that different. The biggest difference, like I said, between bodybuilding, open bodybuilding, classic is people just fit in a certain place better. You know, um, there are some other differences. Don't get me wrong, but that's like the biggest one. You know.
That's awesome. A couple of little questions I forgot to ask. How tall are you and what's your competition weight?
I am 5'5", and I got on stage at 177, but I weighed 173 at the Olympia. Weighed in at 173 at the Olympia.
Awesome. How's Chris in person?
Chris is really nice. He's very to himself. I will be honest with that. But he's never mean. He's never disrespectful. I just wish he was a little bit more. He was more of an ambassador because that's just my thing. I like Mr. Olympia to do a lot of outreach, and as you know, I do a lot of it myself. Even though I'm not to that point, I'm like this past month, every single weekend I was doing a posing seminar somewhere. I did three. I did Miami, Boca, Orlando, Houston. Yeah, so I did all that, and I just was at another event in Tampa this past week. So I do a lot of traveling just because I think it's important. And you know, he's not required to do anything. That's fine. I kind of like people that like to do a little bit more, you know. But overall, he's a really nice guy. He was really happy for me. He was always been respectful, you know. So nothing bad to say.
Yeah. Well, you seem like a very down to earth and very much like a people person. So, you know.
Yeah, man, I try to be, you know. It's the one thing I think when you start bodybuilding, there's some, like, everyone has, like, when they're young, they have these experiences that kind of shape them. And I remember when I first turned pro, I got off stage, and it was one bodybuilder I really liked. He was in the Air Force. He was a 212 pro. And I walk up to him and I say, hey, I just got my pro card. I'm a big fan of yours. I'm also in the Air Force. And he looked at me and he said, okay. And then he turned around and started watching the show again. And I was like,
damn.
And after that point, I was like, man, I don't want anyone to ever feel like that. It sucked. So I think that's the reason why I like to do all these events. Part of the reason, at least.
Yeah, man. Well, you're doing a great job, and I think the fans appreciate it because, as you said, we need more ambassadors like yourself. And again, it comes back to this as an example. I really thank you for your time today, Terrence. And I'm done with my questions for now. But I'll let you get back to your work and your busy day. I'm sure you got better things to do than to speak to me.
Nah, this was fun, man. It's fun. Yeah, I got to get some work done, I guess. But no, I had a really good time, man. And I appreciate you sharing the history of bodybuilding, man. It's really good. Like, I learn stuff all the time from following pages like this,
Thank you. I really appreciate your support as well. Your comments on my pages and all that. It's great. So thank you again for your time and for being a great ambassador. And maybe we can do this again another time.
Yeah, man, that'd be fun. I'll do some, I don't know, something interesting, something different. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. All right, man. You have a great day, and thanks again for your time. Blessings.
All right, man.
Thanks, bro. All right. Ciao.
Ciao.
So I do hope you have enjoyed this first interview with Terrence Ruffin. I found him such a down-to-earth guy, really humble, yet very, very intelligent, and with a real passion for the iron game, and with a real generous spirit that just wants to give more than what he has already received. I really enjoyed my conversation with Terrence. He's a great, great guy. It was a real pleasure to speak to him, and it is refreshing to see such a young talent being such a great ambassador for the sport. I mean, he goes out willingly to all these seminars and just, showcases bodybuilding, his aspirations to join art performances and really show the sport of bodybuilding as an art. I really like his vision. It's fantastic. And I think it is definitely, what the sport needs to become more mainstream, as Terrence stated. I do hope to interview Terrence again, hopefully before this next Olympia later this year, so stay tuned. And I also wish to start interviewing more of the stars of the Classic Physique Division, so I do hope to bring you more interviews like this one. If you have enjoyed the video, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so, and please leave me your comments. I really want to know, do you want this channel to feature more of the Classic Physique stars? At least in my opinion, it is the closest representative division to what old school bodybuilding was in the past, and I personally just love what they are bringing these days, and that is, of course, they are bringing back the artistry of bodybuilding. It is returning to the sport, especially in this division. However, of course, they have a modern approach. It's a very modern, fresh approach, which I think should be praised and encouraged. Anyway, I do hope that you did enjoy this video. That's it from me. This is the Golden Era Bookworm saying bye for now.
Now, if you're interested in learning more about Vince Gironda's approach to bodybuilding, his principles, and all these tips of wisdom that he has, I mean, there's so much stuff that probably hasn't been proven by science, and it will take science to prove or disprove Vince. But to be honest, these 3 books, I believe, which I call the Classic Physique Bundle, are the best books that Vince ever came out with. And they, of course, are the Wild Physique, the Master Series, and the Pro Series. Have a look at it this way. The Wild Physique, I believe, is like the ABCs of Vince Gironda's principles to bodybuilding. He teaches you the exercises and his principles. But how do you put them together? Well, the Master Series is a 14-month program of using all of these principles, all of the diets that Vince came out with, all of the exercises. And believe me, it's a brilliant, brilliant program. Many people have used it. I know personally a lot of bodybuilders that have actually used it and made fantastic results with it. And of course, the Pro Series was a book that he came out with later on, specially targeted for getting into competition. It's just these 3 books, as I call it, the Classic Physique Bundle, Vince's best work, and available, of course, at www.goldenerabookworm.com. Now, the Pro Series of Bodybuilding, which was targeted for professional bodybuilders, contains 6 programs, each of which go for 2 months each. So it's a whole year, again, in preparation for competition. To support your favorite YouTube channel, please visit teespring.com/stores/golden era bookworm for merchandise, including t-shirts, hoodies, face masks, phone cases, and much, much more. Once again, at teespring.com/stores/golden era bookworm. Become a patron at www.patreon.com/golden era bookworm for hard to find books, scans of rare photos, and articles on the golden era of bodybuilding. To take full advantage of my collaboration with Old School Labs, please visit their website and choose from their marvelous range of supplements using my code BOOKWORM12. And for an entertaining look at the history of bodybuilding's supplement industry, I would highly recommend watching Subs the Movie, which I have collaborated in, available at Amazon Prime and Vimeo.